Greetings, Universals. It has been more than 40 years since the Sixth Doctor, played by Colin Baker, first debuted on BBC television screens at the end of the Doctor Who story The Caves of Androzani, Part 4. And not very long afterwards was his debut story, The Twin Dilemma, regarded as the absolute worst story of all time by readers of Doctor Who magazine in every Doctor Who magazine story poll since 1998. Personally, I disagree, but hey, we've all got our own opinions, don't we? It just so happens DWM story polls are popularity contests, aren't they? That's not a dig at them, just saying. However, despite the story's reputation, it did introduce us to the Sixth Doctor. And 40 years on, we still love this underdog incarnation to this day, mostly thanks to Big Finish. 2 years after the introduction of the Sixth Doctor, however, we were introduced to another Doctor, supposedly. That being the Valeyard, played by Michael Jayston. Sadly, we lost Michael Jayston earlier this year in February. However, he and the character of the Valeyard still remain strong within us Whovians. So, in celebration of the 40th anniversary of the Sixth Doctor, and in tribute to the late great Michael Jayston, we here are today to discuss the Valeyard. The Valeyard was introduced in the season-long story The Trial of a Time Lord, a 14-part epic, although split into 4 segments, the first 3 being 4-parters and the last being a 2-part segment. And it was in the first of these segments, The Mysterious Planet, that we were introduced to the Valeyard. The Valeyard played a key role across the entirety of The Trial of a Time Lord, serving as the series' main villain, as he attempted to get the Sixth Doctor executed for the crimes of meddling and interfering with other peoples and planets. The biggest crime in Time Lord society, but something that the Doctor had already been put on trial for back in his second incarnation in the War Games. And subsequent stories, despite being exiled to Earth initially, the Time Lords did allow the Doctor to do missions for them, and later allow him further freedom, in exchange for continuing to occasionally do missions for them. See the 3rd and 4th Doctor's adventures for more detail. It appeared the Time Lords seemed to be a bit more carefree with the Doctor, going around doing his adventures, visiting planets and people, the usual Doctor Who stuff. They seemed to be fine with it, only bringing him in when needed for something more important, such as Omega's second attack on Gallifrey in the Arc of Infinity, or when the Doctor returns to Gallifrey in both The Deadly Assassin and The Invasion of Time, as well as the events of the 5 Doctors. But only now has Gallifrey called him back for another trial about similar activities, and in this case, the sentence is not exile, it is death. Worse still, at the end of episode 12 of the series, the 4th and final part of the 3rd segment, Terror of the Vervoids, a new charge was presented of genocide of a new species, that being the Vervoids, that the Doctor was now facing death for in the final 2 episodes. Long 14-part stories short, the Celestial Intervention Agency, who were actually the ones seemingly more okay with the Doctor bending the rules, and in exchange for him doing missions for them, allowed him his freedom following the events of the 3 Doctors, as well as a few prior. They themselves have done their own meddling and thus moved the planet Earth from its present time and space to another location and renamed it Ravalox, but in the process of doing so caused the Earth to basically regress back into a more natural state, which at our present time of recording would be something not too dissimilar to maybe 1,000 years ago, but with remnants of present day stuff there, such as Marble Arch Tube Station on the Central Line, as well as a futuristic bunker with a robot in charge underneath the surface. But the people above ground would act more like they would 1,000 to 2,000 years ago. The Doctor arrived on Ravelox, aka Earth, and therefore almost exposed the CIA's activities there. So, some higher up ranking Time Lords made a deal with the Valeyard that if he successfully got the Doctor executed for the charge of interference and meddling, breaking the first law of Gallifrey, he could then have the Doctor's remaining lives, and the Ravelox secret would remain a secret. Even though the Valeyard did use the Ravelox incident as an example of the Doctor's guilt, it was presented in a way that would not highlight those events that the Time Lords wanted to keep hidden. If it wasn't for the fact that they had to keep censoring stuff, censorship was the Time Lord's downfall. And this continues to be the case in the audio The Trial of the Valeyard. However, this plan would ultimately be undone by another meddling, time-travelling, spacefaring Time Lord known only as the Master. Played by Anthony Ainley, the Master infiltrated the Matrix, similar to how he and the Fourth Doctor had done earlier in The Deadly Assassin, 10 years prior to this story's broadcast. The Master then revealed the truth about everything and revealed that the Valeyard was actually a dark manifestation of the Doctor between their 12th and 13th regenerations. The final 2 episodes saw the 6th Doctor battle the Valeyard in the Matrix, eventually winning and securing his freedom, with the Time Lords exonerating him for his crimes, and a new power leadership being established. However, the Valeyard did escape his supposed fate, and became the new keeper of the key to the Matrix. He has yet to appear on TV since 1986. The Valeyard has appeared in several expanded media stories, including the 2014 Big Finish audio Trial of the Valeyard, where the Valeyard himself was put on trial and requested the Doctor to be his defence counsel. The late Linda Bellingham, who played the Inquisitor in The Trial of a Time Lord and later in the audio series Gallifrey, would reprise her role as the Inquisitor in this story as well. Sadly, this would be her final performance as the Inquisitor before her passing later that year. The Trial of a Valeyard serves both as a sequel to The Trial of a Time Lord and as a prequel to the 6th Doctor, The Last Adventure box set that would be released a year later, with the story's order being from the perspective of the Valeyard's plan to destroy the Doctor and take over his life. However, eventually the 6th Doctor managed to defeat him and allowed his younger self, unaffected by the Valeyard's actions, to then fly into radioactive beams coming from the planet Lacursha, thus leading in to the opening of the next TV story following The Trial of a Time Lord, Time in the Rani, the opener of Season 24, and the regeneration story of the 6th Doctor into the 7th Doctor, on screen, as the end of the 6th Doctor, The Last Adventure, Episode 4, The Brink of Destruction, serves as the official regeneration story for the 6th Doctor, and leading into Time in the Rani, Part 1, for the on-screen regeneration, and then the rest of the story as the post-regeneration story for Sylvester McCoy's 7th Doctor. Praise to Sylvester. The Valeyard was a key part in the regeneration of the 6th Doctor into the 7th Doctor, as much as the Rani was, due to his attempt to take over the 6th Doctor's lives shortly before, and the 6th Doctor's final battle with him to allow him to then escape that fate and then instead become the 7th Doctor. The Valeyard would make one more chronological appearance in the Doctor's timeline, going by the Big Finish audios as the War Valeyard, a manifestation of the Valeyard from our timeline and from an alternative timeline, and acting more like the Doctor, as he attempts to help win the Time War despite his evil side trying to break through to him, and eventually would team up with the 8th Doctor, played by Paul McGann, although the Doctor was weary of the Valeyard's true nature and intentions, but eventually came round to him by the end and helped him fight his demons, as did his companion Bliss, played by Raki Sakura, and together they were able to actually wipe out the Daleks before the Dalek time strategist decided to go to an alternative universe to get that universe's Davros, played by Terry Malloy, in order to recreate the Dalek Empire. The 8th Doctor Time War 4 basically goes into all of that. As of 2024, that is the final chronological story with the Valeyard, and we have yet to have a story featuring the Valeyard with an incarnation of the Doctor following Paul McGann's 8th Doctor. However, the Valeyard is one of the names the Doctor is known by other species, or because of their incarnation between their 12th and 13th incarnations, and thus the label is one that they have been presented alongside that of the oncoming Storm, the Predator, etc. See The Name of the Doctor and Twice Upon a Time. However, the Valeyard's legacy has not seemed to be too impactful to the revival incarnations, despite it being between the 12th and 13th regenerations. Now, without the War Doctor and the 10th Doctor regenerating into themselves, and forgetting about the whole Timeless Child thing for a bit, which I know a lot of people would love to do, the 12th and 13th Doctor regeneration would seem to be the pinpoint spot where the Valeyard would have been created. And as mentioned, he's even name-dropped in that episode as something the Doctor is referred to. However, including the War Doctor and the regeneration of the 10th Doctor into the 10th Doctor in The Stolen Earth and Journey's End, the actual 12th to 13th incarnation regeneration is in the End of Time, which sees the 10th Doctor, second incarnation, regenerate into the 11th Doctor. In retrospect, fans have pointed out that the fact that the 11th Doctor was the final of the original 13 incarnations, until the Timeless Child revelation came along and put that all into question marks again, makes the 10th Doctor saying he doesn't want to go more impactful due to the fact that the next incarnation is the final incarnation, as far as they knew at that point. Which begs the question why the 10th Doctor regenerated into himself and wasted the penultimate life that another incarnation could have had. As the 11th Doctor said in the Time of the Doctor, he had vanity issues. But as the Time of the Doctor explained, that regeneration in the Stolen Earth and Journey's End counted, and with the War Doctor, that meant that End of Time regeneration is the regeneration where the Valeyard could have split. I believe Titan Comics' The Four Doctors did touch upon this, where they show the worst decisions of each of the Doctors in that story, and what they did, and the 10th Doctor's was allowing Wilf to die instead of saving him, and thus going on to regenerate. But it could imply that if the 10th Doctor had allowed Will to die and eventually regenerated from another means, it's possible that in that regeneration the Valeyard could have been created. And with bi-regeneration being introduced, who's not to say that it could go two ways? You could, instead of the 12th incarnation splitting with the 13th, what if the 13th was two incarnations? Good, the 11th Doctor, Matt Smith, or bad, the Michael Jayston Valeyard, who would then travel back to the 6th Doctor's era to try and take the Doctor's lives. Now, this could create a paradox. But this is Doctor Who. Paradoxes happen all the frickin' time, and timelines come and go all the time, so this is not unfeasible. By the way, all this stuff now is theoretical. Whilst it is true the 10th to 11th Doctor regeneration would be the point where the Valeyard would be a dark manifestation from, there has been little evidence to suggest how or why that has been created, outside of the Valeyard apparently saying some stuff in Trial of the Valeyard, which may have some sense of truth, but it's the Valeyard. You can't always trust him. It's like trusting the boy who cried wolf, or should I say the girl who became the bad wolf. Actually, you can trust her, unless you're a Dalek. So in an alternative universe where the 10th Doctor did not save Wilfred Mott in the End of Time Part 2, and thus went on to live a bit longer, but eventually did regenerate into his next incarnation, that could have led to the split of good and bad, where the Valeyard would then come and then therefore try to do his own evil ploy to get more lives. Thus created the theoretical paradox, but because of the 10th Doctor's noble sacrifice, he was able to change the direction and allow his regeneration into the 11th Doctor to go, I would not say smoothly actually, the regeneration, that is probably the biggest, most explosive regeneration of the entire show. But the 11th Doctor, despite his flaws, is a good man. However, despite being a good man, this Doctor does have a dark streak to him, as seen in series 5 and 6, not so much series 7. However, in the time of the Doctor, the 11th Doctor was given a new set of regeneration energy, and thus a new set of lives and regenerations, allowing them to have many more faces. We don't even know what the number is for this set of regenerations. It could be infinite, it could be the usual 13, it could be more, it could be less. At this current time, there have been 4 new incarnations of the Doctor, not including the regeneration into the Spine Master and the degeneration back. That might add another 2, and the Valeyard has yet to make an appearance. However, never say never, as in just under a month's time, the 15th Doctor's era will be starting, and we will be seeing which dangerous big bads he will be facing. I'm particularly looking forward to Jinx Monsoon eating the scenery and being absolutely delicious. Nice. So, what is the future for the Valeyard as a character? Well, unless the Valeyard is able to be portrayed by another actor, it is likely we will not be getting any more audio dramas or appearances on television. The only stories going forward will now be prose, or audiobooks narrated by one person. But never say never, this is Doctor Who, and recasts are possible. The Valeyard could be played by another actor. Don't forget, he has been in disguise. Mr. Popwick and his character from the end of the line, the first episode of the 6th Doctor, The Last Adventure, are 2 examples of him in disguise, as well as also pretending to be the 13th Doctor. No, not Jodie Whittaker, another 13th Doctor. No, not Joanne Lumley either. Another alternate 13th Doctor. But it turns out he wasn't really the Doctor, so it doesn't really count, so don't worry about it. Point is, he was in disguise as that, not actually alternative 13th Doctor. So a recast is potentially possible, but not yet, mainly due to the character not being used either for TV or even for audio for some time, but also out of respect for Michael Jayston. If the Valeyard was to return, it probably will not be done just yet. However, if anyone does come up with a TV or audio drama story to feature the Valeyard, then they could easily recast. Until then, out of respect for the original actor, it is unlikely that there will be another story featuring the Valeyard just yet, outside of prose and audiobook, narrated by a different actor / narrator. However, fan projects have free game. They can do whatever they want. The Valeyard's legacy is quite strong with the fandom, creating a new continuity head-scratch way of his introduction in 1986. And since then, fans have been trying to work out a way to integrate him into the story, and even the expanded media stories are still playing fast and loose and coy with the Valeyard's continuity and his backstory. Even Big Finish are very coy about the Valeyard's origins and his placement in the continuity. They want to play in the sandbox, but leave sand for the next person to play in, so to speak, which is both great and frustrating at the same time. Great for creativity from other fans, but frustrating that the fact that we still haven't got the answers we're looking for. It's the same with the Timeless Child arc in Series 13. We've been given more tantalising clues, and then nothing more. Some stuff is said, and then we have to go and work out the rest of our own theories, which is fun for a bit, but after a while it does get a bit frustrating. And it's worse for the TV series than it is for the audios, as this is a mainstream media, whilst the audios are more for the fans. Still, like I said, if the Valeyard was to return at some point, there is potential they could do with the character. Whether they will or not is to be seen. On a final note, it is also worth noting there have been other dark sides of the Doctors, the most notable being the Dream Lord from Series 5's Amy's Choice, played by Toby Jones. This was a manifestation of the Doctor created by psychic pollen gotten into the TARDIS, so technically he was not really physically there, but with the Doctor, Amy and Rory asleep, he was able to have control of their dreams. Toby Jones's The Dream Lord is the closest thing the new series has to the Valeyard, but he's not exactly the same. But the end of the episode does imply that there's still part of him in the Doctor, as he was created from a manifestation of the Doctor's bad side, just like the Valeyard, but only in a metaphysical, dreamlike state. But the parts that created him remain with the Doctor even by the end of the story. And with the Doctor now having a new set of regenerations, does that mean the Valeyard could easily be created during one of these other ones? As they did specify between the Doctor's 12th and final regeneration. Initially that would have meant the 12th and 13th Doctors, but now that can mean the 12th Doctor and whichever ends up being the final Doctor. We'll have to see. And so until a writer dares to go further into the Valeyard's life and actually explain some answers without it seeming to be some lies or misinformation or something that could be true, but because it's spoken by the Valeyard themselves, you're not really entirely sure, especially if they're doing something else which is all an act, then at this point in time we'll just have to continue speculating. Well, we fans are good at that anyway, aren't we? Thank you for watching this video, and Michael Jayston, thank you for being the Valeyard. Here's to you. And happy 40th anniversary to the 6th Doctor. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.